Hello and welcome to another episode of Off the Ruck, your weekly rugby breakdown with me, John Ferguson, and joined today to break down the announcement of our first Wallabies 23 for match day on Sunday against Fiji on 6th of July. It is Lockie from Scrumbags. Lockie, first Wallabies team of the year. How excited are you? It is like Christmas come early.
It's another Christmas. Not only do we get a Lions tour, but we get a pre-game Wallabies test. That's so rare, and I'm so stoked that we get to break this down. And a live reaction from you, mate. Doesn't get much better.
I know. So I haven't actually looked at the side yet. Obviously, I knew that 1 p.m. was going to happen. We all got the media release. The Wallabies been putting it out on their socials. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to have a quick look at it. And you can just kind of see what you see from my facial reaction. So let's go straight to the front row. Porecki, Alan Alatoa, and James Slipper, the Brumbies props in. I did actually tip that, I think, from our preview episode where I thought that the old heads would come in since they were doing so well as a unit beforehand. I thought they may have been joined by Billy Pollard, but we'll get more on that in a second. Second row, Nick Frost, Jeremy Williams, no Will Skelton, as predicted or as people were seeing in the media from a tweaked calf. Very, very good second row pairing. Laney Gleeson at 6, Fraser McRae at 7, and Harry Wilson at 8. Solid as she goes. Tate McDermott, Noel Olsey on the halves, Lenny Kitau, and Joseph Akuso Suaalii, the centers combination that everyone wanted to have. And then, of course, Max Jorgensen, Tom Wright, and Harry Potter, the wingers. There'd been chat about it. There'd been chatter. But, you know, we don't know until the team list gets confirmed, and now it has been. That's some quick wingers. Although they're going to have their running shoes on if they're going to compete with the Fijians. So we'll see how it goes. We'll go into the bench in a second, but give me your first reaction to that starting 15. Joe Schmidt, although he's stuck with a lot of the tried and tested combinations, he's trying some new things out. Obviously, some forced by injury, but it's looking a bit new.
Yeah, it's a strange one. There are a lot of established combinations. I particularly like the reinstating of Frost and Williams. I thought they were really effective through last year in the engine room. No surprises to see McWright and Wilson there. I was surprised to see Gleeson brought in at 6. I feel it may limit line-out options, but Gleeson's form at the back of that Waratah scrum was irresistible, right? So maybe it was that flip a coin for Tom Hooper. I'm sure we'll get massive minutes off the bench, as I'm sure we'll get to in a sec. The big bolt for me, that starting lineup, David Porecki. What a bolt from the blue. We know that he needs game time if he's to feature, but that combination with Billy Pollard at the Brumbies, I would have thought that's a shoe-in to start the 3 Canberrans up front, but a great opportunity now for Porecki to put his hand up. He hasn't had a game since the World Cup from memory in 2023, that ill-fated adventure. So amazing that he gets to come back against Fiji where it all started going downhill, Fergo.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, completely out of the blue, but he's gone from the sky blue of the Waratahs straight into the golden of the gold of the Wallabies. And I think it's really interesting to see, obviously, Angus Bell not starting. And this is where I am going to say what I said in our review reaction to the Wallaby squad being announced initially. Scrum, power, dominance, and stability is what's going to matter on this Lions tour. As we've seen, scrum dominance has really been able to put a spanner in the works for some of the patches throughout the Super Games that we've seen so far. So James Slipper and Alan Alatoa have scrummed really, really, really well together, considering they came off a really shaky 2024. So that just goes to show that Joe Schmidt is not taking running only into consideration. Obviously, Angus Bell does that almost better than anyone in the world, only maybe second to Ellis Genge, who he's going to likely go up against. But that selection right there, surely that has to be a bit of a surprise as well.
Virgo, it is a little bit as well, but I tend to think maybe, as we teased in a couple of previews before, maybe we will go for a Wallabies bomb squad style. The thought of Angus Bell and Tani Latupa coming off the bench in a Lion series is really exciting stuff. You throw in the likes of a Skelton when fit, a Lukan Salakaia-Loto when fit, Rob Valetini, who's also missed out on this one to injury. I don't imagine a world in which he couldn't be starting, but maybe this is the kind of thing that Joe Schmidt is preparing for, to bring on a powerful bench to knock down the Lions in a test series, and it all comes down to this one hit out. This is the opportunity to test these combinations. So I'm really excited to see Slipper starting, the old bull. He hasn't put a foot wrong this season, so I don't think you can say that he doesn't deserve it, but what can Bell bring from the bench? That's what I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, exactly. And as we see with the tests or the games that have been played already on the tour, the 60-minute to the 80-minute mark is actually where a lot of the big difference matters, even up to the 50th minute. So Angus Bell by no means is going to be able to come on and close out a game. He's going to have to come in and really implement some impact, as you say there, Lockie. Going into the second row, solid, straight into the back row, I agree. You look at the height of Nick Frost, obviously probably our tallest second rower. I think he is our tallest second rower in the squad, mixed with a second rower in Jeremy Williams, who's a little bit shorter. But then you have Langy Gleeson in there as well, and Harry Wilson. You're right, there is not a whole lot of height, but then you have to think about what are they going to try to win? Maybe they do feel like they have the wood over the Fijians just from a pure line out structure perspective, and they just realize they need to be able to practice this getting over the gain line, being confrontational, and really giving it to them. And I'm not saying that Tom Hooper's not that, but Langy Gleeson, we know that he goes absolutely ballistic when he plays his countrymen, as he does have Fijian heritage. So I see a reasoning in that. Obviously, really nice to see him paired with Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson, as well as the trio of Tate McDermott at halfback. We'll get to the backs in a second, but that cohesion sticks together. Implement the power which Langy Gleeson brings. It really does kind of give a similar feel. You can't replace two-time John Neal's medalist Rob Valentini, but nonetheless, you're getting a pretty good replacement in Langy Gleeson after a great season of form.
Yeah, it's as close to that line bending ability as you get. I think you just will miss him at line out time. Maybe it lends itself to just setting a 5 or a 4-man and giving Langy and Wilso the back fence platform to really lead the attack. But lots to like about it. I'm really excited to see what Gleeson can do in a starting jersey.
And then into the backs, your man, Tate McDermott from the Queensland Reds, partnered with Noah Lolesio. This was always the combination that was potentially going to happen. I think Noah Lolesio is more penciled in, more so than Tate McDermott necessarily. Perhaps a bit of a hamstring niggle too. Jake Gordon has lent itself to be able to be a bit of a switch around in there, but nonetheless, you can't say that Tate McDermott hasn't had a great season at the Reds as well. What do you like about this combination here?
I like the speed of it, and I like the bit of chalk and cheese with Tate's natural running game combined with Lolasio's patience, and then the combination that's already established with Iki Tau at 12, which we'll get to. I think it's the two most informed players in their position, and that's what I like about the selection. We will see the likes of Nick White and Ben Donaldson get a chance, but for me, this is a safe pairing with Jake Gordon out injured.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that the only thing that we need to be able to watch from an Australian perspective when we're watching this halves combination is, can they get us into the right parts of the field? Do they know when to pull the trigger about when to run and when to kick? And can someone like Tate McDermott really apply himself to the core skills of passing and kicking and doing it really accurately and really well for however many minutes he may be playing on Sunday? I just really want to see that, because as we've seen with the British and Irish Lions halfbacks, they are absolutely flawless in their skill execution when it comes to the kick and pass. Running, I don't think anyone does it better than Tate McDermott in any of the sides, or for the British and Irish Lions, that matter. But nonetheless, you just want to make sure that he's nailing those core roles. And for Noah Lolesio, he's going to have a lot of heavy traffic coming his way. He's going to have to tackle his heart out, but that's something that I think he's really embraced this year. And as I've said before, his tackling stats are pretty decent. So we can expect good things from this young halves pairing, but then again, they are very experienced now. Noah Lolesio played more than 100 professional games across several clubs now, and then obviously as clubs and test teams, and then obviously Tate McDermott as well. He's way up there as well. So really experienced from a Wallabies perspective, because we could have a far less experienced number 10 there. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Now into the centers. The star-studded centers, which I don't think anyone can say that these centers are going to take a backward step against anyone, not even the Fijians, and they're definitely going to be wanting to play some ball.
Absolutely. This is the baller combination, right? The Flicky Tau, the Suaalii, everyone's got that Twickenham memory burned in their brain. And we're seeing so much, particularly through Wallabies socials. And yes, it's one particular lens, but they're really clicking just as people and as a partnership as well. We haven't seen that for an established Wallaby centre pairing for a long time. Trusted on players who know each other's game inside out. We're starting to get that sense. This could be the start of something really, really special between Iki Tau and Suaalii. Still a little bit of teething issues to go with Iki Tau at 12, not out of ability, but purely out of positioning. What can he get to go with Noah Lolesio? That's the important combination. Suaalii in space, my goodness, I shudder to think what he's able to do on an outside ball with that amount of space. So really excited to see how they click again. You've got to remember, this is only going to be their fourth game in this combination. So give them a bit of time, be a bit patient with them. I'm sure the dividends will pay.
Yeah, and then the wingers, because they're gonna have to connect with the inside. Suaalii's gonna have to connect with the inside. He's gonna have to connect with the out. Harry Potter, he's played a little bit with Max Jorgensen, obviously, has not played a whole lot with Tom Wright. I think what's going to be really important here is that the back three are we haven't seen the Fijian side yet, but what they're going to have to practice and make sure that they absolutely nail for the Lions test is field coverage. High balls, contestables, and being able to do good field coverage and communication. Because without that, doesn't matter how well you're running the ball, you're going to be picked apart in the backfield, and the Wallabies are going to be going backwards when they come up against the Lions. So backfield coverage, extremely important. All these three are pretty decent in the air, and I just can't wait to see if Max Jorgensen can return immediately to his pre-injury form because it was electric.
Yeah, that's the multi-million dollar question. I would have thought maybe Filippo Dalguna gets a sniff ahead of him, but because we haven't seen Jorgo since that injury against the Hurricanes, he needs that time on the paddock, right? He was phenomenal. And we know he's got the kind of pace that you can't buy, especially him and Potter too. There's a nice size contrast there. Jorgo, a great communicator. Potter, the informed winger from the Australian Super Rugby teams, and Wright's a lock there himself. So a huge job to do covering that field, a huge kicking task ahead, which is I like the fact that Jorgensen included. He's very accurate off the boot. Man, I just can't wait to see this team in action. And then not just them, but also the combinations that come off the bench for the Wallabies as well. To see Nick Wright rewarded for his form is excellent, plus Donaldson, plus Dalgunu. That's coverage almost all across the field.
No, that's a great transition. I really like that. We're going to go straight to the bench now. Billy Pollard, obviously, tremendous form. You and I are both surprised that he didn't get in ahead of Dave Porecki, especially because he has the Nick Frost combination, having played with Nick Frost all year for the Brumbies. And then obviously Jeremy Williams had a lot of time together last year, obviously, playing for the Wallabies. So Zane Nongor gets a shot. Now, I'm not sure. We don't know what the Fijian side is right now, but I can tell you from watching Zane Nongor all season, he didn't exactly dominate any of the scrums he was part of. I'm not saying that he went backwards, but that's an area that if you're not having Taniela Tupou, they have decided to not go with Tom Robinson, shifting him to the tight head side. They've given Nongor this shot. How much is it on Nongor to really impress and impose himself at scrum time? Because we know he's good around the field. It's just going to come down to that because we know how important the scrum is, having watched the two previous British and Irish Lions tour games.
Well, Fergo, this makes or breaks Zane Nongor's Lions test hopes, right? He wasn't picked for the Reds game. He's been picked specifically to scrum against Fiji off the bench. So if he does not perform, he will not feature in that test series. It's plain and simple. Taniela Tupou gets a chance as a starter against the Lions on Saturday night. If he outperforms Nongor, Nongor's chance is over because Robertson is also ahead of him on form at the moment. So a massive responsibility coming off the pine. You know, Masaki Donge, Tavita Kanavere, Penny Ravai set to likely feature. Those are very seasoned scrummages. So Zane's got a massive challenge. Let's see if he's up for it.
Yeah, no, you're really right to point out those specific scrummages from the Fijian side because we know so much from them, from Penny Ravai having played at the Reds last season, now being part of the Fijian Drua side, and obviously all the Fijian and Drua props, which some of them have headed over to the MLR, but nonetheless, we have learnt those names, and they are really impressive specimens. So he has his work cut out for him. You're right to point it out. We'll go into the second row. And back row replacements now. They've gone with a 5-3 split, so not a forward-dominated back row, bench, sorry, rather. Carlo Tizzano. I know I'm jumping over Tom Hobart, but yes, we've seen 2 sevens being put in the game day and the game day squad, and I cannot express how happy I am for Carlo. He is a larger than life type of character, and I absolutely love what he's doing. And, you know, Fraser McWright, if I'm honest, he's getting in on incumbency ahead of Tizzano, but Tizzano's had the much better season. So I just can't wait to see this man rip and tear because I know that he gives his all for whether the jersey's the sea of blue or whether it's gold. I know that he's going to absolutely dig in. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Honestly, I think if Carlo Tizzano's season isn't affected by injury in that late period, he probably starts ahead of McWright, but it's that 8-7 combination that gets him home. And I love seeing a straight shootout for the 7 jersey. It feels throughout the era of Australian professional rugby, there has always been 2 people absolutely chomping at the bit and fighting for that 7 jersey. Phil Ward, George Smith, David Pocock, Michael Hooper. You know, this is a storied Australian tradition of 7s going at it. And I think we're going to see this for the next decade between these 2 proper ding-dong battles. So I would love to see them get a half each to show their worth. A massive opportunity for both of them to lock down that gold jersey ahead of the Lions.
Yeah, we'll get onto that straight up matchup in a second. Obviously, Tom Hooper comes on to be able to be replacement for second row should there be an injury, or back row most likely going to add a little bit of height and relieve Langy Gleeson of having to play 80 minutes. I can see Harry Wilson has a big enough engine and is very capable of playing 80 minutes, so I can see that happening, particularly as he has been indeed named as captain. So that lends itself to him playing 80, but Tom Hooper, I just want to see him come on and just take it off the back fence. You know, if there's a line dropout or whatever, I don't want him to go into his shell, think that it's test match rugby. I want him to play just and hard, as fast and on the edge as he did all Super Rugby season, because he was super close at some points of the season to being named the inaugural Super Rugby Pacific Player of the Year.
He was. He led for the decent chunk of that before Artie went full Artie, right? So
Yeah.
I would love to see Tom Hooper go full country and really take it to the Fijians. Back fence stuff, attrition in the rucks. We know he's got the right amount of niggle and the right amount of boundary pushing to be that effective lock six cover. And frankly, I'd love to see him move that Super Rugby form into a test enforcer role off the bench. We need those big scary characters that can take it to opposition packs. Tom Hooper's got all the hallmarks of being a long-term enforcer. So looking forward to seeing him coming on. I would love to see him get at least 30 to really stamp himself against the Fijians.
Yeah, no, let's keep our eye out for Tom Hooper and see how he goes. The 4, 9, and 10 combination, Nick White in the 21 jersey, Ben Donaldson in the 22 jersey. That says to me that obviously Tom Line is nursing a bit of a hand injury, from what I understand. But nonetheless, I'm liking the combinations being kept. And so it's really important that they come off the bench and they don't just fit in. They really take it up a notch, and they're able to, if the Wallabies are up, I want to see them put Fiji to the sword and be really commanding. And that comes from game management. So I want to see that from Ben Donaldson. We know that Nick White can do it, but I just need to see that game management from Ben Donaldson. And hopefully he's behind a dominant pack and allows him to play the kind of rugby that he likes to play, with a little bit more of a running, roving game when he gets the side into the right parts of the field.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's really important for any of the players that played in 2023 against Fiji to feature in this game, to shake out those last little mental demons and to have a good, strong result in Newcastle. This just isn't about setting yourself up for the Lions. This is much bigger. It's a test match. It's a chance for revenge. And it's a chance to set those past moments aside and set yourself up for future success. So it's essential that the Donaldsons, the McDermotts, the McWrights, the Hoopers, players who are on the paddock in that game against Fiji need to dominate and put that all in the past.
And the final man, your Reds man now, Filippo Dangunu, what's he going to add, and where do you think we'll see him? Is he going to relieve a Jorgensen not having to play 80 minutes coming back from injury? Can we see him slotting into the centres? Do we not take the Ferrari out for a full 80 minutes? Where do we see him fitting in?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I imagine he's probably going to come on as a straight swap for Jorgensen at some stage, just to keep the legs a little fresher. But I am concerned that there is not coverage at 12. We don't have an out-and-out 12 in this side. And to see Lenny Kitau, yes, it's not too far, but into his 12 career, still a little concerned though. So Filippo, he may have to shift into 13 if anything happens to Len. What does that mean for Suaalii? What role can we expect from him?
Big Suaalii at 12. I've been high on that for ages.
I'd like to see it.
And at 12, I want to see it. If I don't want injury on anyone, but purely if it's like about conserving the legs of Lenny Kitau and they don't want him to play a full 80, which I don't see why not, because everyone wants to see full 80 of Len Kitau. But nonetheless, then I want to see Jas move into 12, because that would be just epic. And now we've covered the side. Let's talk about what we expect to see tactically from the Wallabies. I really, really hope that the Wallabies play the style that they're hoping to carry into the British and Irish Lions tour. And that means 3, 4 phases. If you're not getting pay out of it, do something with their constructive kick. I don't want to see them just running phases for the sake of it. But under Joe Schmidt, as they did at the start of last year, and we know now, they just ran phase after phase after phase into the teeth, because Joe Schmidt wanted to show them and wanted them to prove that they could play high phase ball and retain their own ball and not be pilfered at the ruck. That was purely just as a show me that you can do this. Do you reckon we'll see a little bit of an adaptation on that and now really settle quickly and initially into a tactically savvy kind of game style?
I think you have to, right? This is the game plan that you want to implement against the Lions. Yes, you want to win this test match, but you also want to set this up for the Lions series. So I expect on the kicking front, either high, contestable and short for Potter and Wright and Suaalii to get after, or it's low, it's raking, it goes out. We don't want any opportunities for those midfield kicks where it doesn't go anywhere and the chase isn't hard enough. And you certainly don't want quick lineouts coming from that Fijian side. So really important roles there for Lolosio, for Wright, and for McDermott. As for runners, I expect hard and fast up the middle. They're going to want to stretch. They're going to want to tie that Fijian pack and find opportunities for Lenny Kitau and for Joseph Suaalii to come back on that hard angle, either over or under, isolating tired defenders and splitting the line. I think the harder they work up the guts and up the middle with those big ball runners like Gleeson, like Wilson, the easier it will be to find cracks on the edge. So I'm expecting a high octane game with really sharp established kicking and a huge battle at set piece as well.
And what do you think as you touch on set piece there, what do you think are the big cornerstones of the game so far as, what will Schmidt be looking for? Because obviously it's not the same opposition. Fiji aren't going to play. What is he wanting to see from his side to be able to bring forward? Because it's their only warm-up leading up into the British and Irish Lions test on the 19th of July. So what are the cornerstones of the game that he wants to see? What are the pillars of the game that Joe Schmidt will want to see from this game?
Accuracy, pure and simple. Hit your lineouts. Win your own scrums. It's not all about dominating the opposition scrum on their ball. It's about securing your pill and making sure you're doing your core roles right. Lord Laurie will be on them like a rash about their ruck entry, making sure you're coming in from behind, making sure you're hitting low and driving past the ball. All the simple little things that aren't as technical but are more effort areas, they're going to be the focus as well. So if it's a clean and clinical display, I think Australian fans are going to be happy.
Yeah, I agree. I think as well, you want to be looking at pod shape. You want to be looking at who's moving where. You also want to be looking at who are the big ball runners. So in that starting pack, you have Jeremy Williams, who's one of the best gain line runners in regards to second row, but also of the entire Wallabies pack that's been picked today, alongside Langy Gleeson and Harry Wilson. So they're the big ball runners that you've got. So you've got three in the pack that are the big ball runners. Obviously, there's others who do a lot of carrying, but not necessarily doing dominant carries like those three. And then in the back line, you've got Lenny Kitau and Joseph Suaalii. Those are your two big carriers. That is where the meterage is going to come from a blunt force and a blunt contact situation. But you've got the speed of Max Jorgensen and Harry Potter and also Tom Wright. I just want to make sure that we see that Joe Schmidt is using those things, because I feel like that's the kind of backline that we've kind of constructed, or Joe Schmidt has constructed. And you have to be able to put your wingers and your speedsters into positions to actually use that asset that they have. And especially against the Lions, who have picked big, bulky wingers. And I know this is Fiji, but you have to be able to manipulate the defense to be able to get these wingers in a one-on-one with 10, 15 meters of space. Because that's what we want to see from the guys like Max Jorgensen, Corey Toole, if he gets a shot, Tom Wright, and Harry Potter, and obviously Dylan Peach.
Yeah, I agree. And just on the defensive side as well from Australia, we want accuracy, and we mentioned it before, but accuracy in the tackle, and that means shutting down the ball, because there is one strong similarity between the Fijians and the Lions, that is up-tempo offloading play, out of hand and off the deck as well. That's where we'll see similarities. So if Australia are able to shut down the ball carrier, wrap up top, that's an important two-man tackle to make sure you slow down the pace of the game in defence. That's going to be crucial to set themselves up for success, not only against Fiji, but against the Lions in Brisbane come game one.
I'm glad you touched on that, because chop tackling is something that Joe Schmidt is very, very high on, and so is Laurie Fisher. And you look at some of the players that have been selected, they come from environments that don't particularly chop tackle. So they're really going to have to see if that messaging has been implemented and followed by the players, because we can't have, as you say, offloads being had when players are standing in the tackle. Obviously, the Wallabies run a connected line speed defense, so it's not a rush. And so that means that you're tackling from the inside shoulder outwards, and you're pushing that attacker away from their inside support, and you have to make sure that that chop is not only low and accurate, but also forceful to bring them to ground. You can't let them take one or two steps past you, and because the Fijians have these big mitts on them, and they're just going to be able to put it wherever they want to put it. So you're right to highlight the tackle technique. We just got to make sure they put in with a little bit of oomph and a little bit of effort to actually be able to bring them to deck quickly. Lots of rugby across the weekend. Tests, internationals being played across the world. You cannot get enough rugby this weekend. But for this particular game on Sunday, Locke, can I please get your prediction? Fiji versus Wallabies, game 1, 6th July, 1:30 p.m. kickoff, I think it is, in Newcastle. Get down to McDonald Jones Stadium if you can. What's your prediction, Long?
Fergo, I think it's going to be tight. It's going to be tighter than we like as Aussie fans. The Fijians are not to be messed around with. I'm going to say Australia by 12, and it's going to be a late push that gets us away. What about you?
I'm going to say the same, but I'm just going to go a little bit bigger because I feel like we need a little bit of a big win. I know that the Lions lost their first game that they played together. Obviously, that's a completely different composite to what these Wallabies are going to be going through since they had their coaching under Joe Schmidt last year. But I'm going to go 15, and I think that it will be, as you say, a late push. I think you surmised it really well. So 15 points for me, 12 points for you. Lockie, thank you so much for joining Off the Ruck in this collaboration with Scrumbags we're doing throughout the entire Lions series. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, on the pod platforms for Scrumbags, wherever you get your pod, on YouTube exclusively for Off the Ruck. Follow us, like us, subscribe. It helps us grow the rugby and bring us to more rugby lovers like yourselves. So, Lockie, enjoy your weekend. I know that you're out and about on the grounds. But everyone else, enjoy your rugby across the entire world, wherever you're joining us from. And if you're Australian, fingers crossed for an Aussie win. Lockie, have a good weekend. Enjoy your rugby.
Same to you, mate. Catch you later.